Thought maybe not.
All set? Okay, welcome everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you please join me in the pledge of allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our first order of business is to declare clerk pro tem.
Make that motion.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So done. Amen. Next action item is approval of the minutes with, I believe one amendment. No, that's our December
Yeah, I think it was about the American Red Cross. It was,
donation was incorrectly listed. Yep, thank you. And the correction is listed as American Red Cross. So with that change, we have a motion to approve the minutes.
Move it.
second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes for December 6th are carried. Next, we have approval of CSE, CPSE recommendations. In the packet.
Move it.
Motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Recommendations are carried. And we're up to public comment. All just recognitions? Okay. Well, I would like to turn over to Dr. McDonald for our recognition portion.
And I'm gonna hop potato this right to, I'm gonna go right from Mr. Loomis right to, because we have Vanessa here this evening. Ms. Mara, we would like to please introduce our special recognition this evening of our two alumni.
So this fall, two of our alumni, Bryn Backus and Kale Howland, earned their American degree. This degree, they had to first earn their state level awards and other awards as well at the state, and they had to meet 10 different things. I think you have to meet, yeah, a whole list of things that they have to meet. And actually less than 1% of all of the FFA nationwide members actually received this one. And we were lucky enough to have both of them. So we got to watch them walk across the stage in Indianapolis and receive their recognition. Cheer them on. We are very proud of them. And hopefully we're putting together our huge list of them as for the American degrees so that we can start recognizing them every year for that.
It's just like, overall, it was a great experience and definitely paid off in that.
Thank you for your hard work in that.
It's tremendous.
Congratulations. It's
Yeah,
really good. Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you especially for taking the time to coming back to get recognized for this. We appreciate it. Mary, if you want a better photo, by all means, you're not interrupting to do so.
Thank you.
Everybody's ducking.
Thank you.
Photos.
No, that's really good.
Okay, next we have new faculty introduction. Yep, please.
Okay. Mr. Hoover, you'd like to introduce your first?
I'm filling in for Mr. Pitchness, who couldn't be here. I think he's coaching a game down in the middle school gym. And it's my pleasure to introduce Mrs. Beth O'Hara. She's our, not so new anymore, but our seventh grade math teacher. We were fortunate to find somebody with a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, and she's doing an excellent job with our seventh graders.
Welcome aboard.
Next, we'll turn it over to Bryn Hoover Day.
I'm introducing Michaela Fowler, and she is our seventh grade science teacher. She also came to us with some great experience from her previous district, and she has jumped right in. She's enthusiastic. The kids respond well to her, and she already is into all the stuff we do as a faculty, so we are very lucky, lucky to have her with us.
And our last recognition this evening, we have Stephanie Rosa. So with her.
So I'm here to introduce Mrs. Saporito, who should be a very familiar face. She's actually been here with us for 8 years. The first 4 was a sub, and then she had 3 more years as a long-term sub. And now she is our high school art teacher. So we are very excited that she is finally officially part of the.
Welcome, everyone.
Okay, we'd like to move into tenure appointments.
Yes. Mr. Loomis.
Sure, Mr. Cutting, if you could stand up. This is Nate Cutting. He teaches secondary science in the high school. Nate originally joined us in the middle of one of the school years, fulfilling a need for us immediately. And Nate has kind of continued to step in wherever he's needed, whether it's covering classes. He co-advises the fishing club. He's a part of the travel club. And overall, Nate's just a really good guy. Anybody you talk to has really nice things to say about Nate. He's a great addition to us here at the high school. And on top of all that, he takes pride in what he does in the classroom and he consistently tries to get better. And that's a really nice thing to see in somebody here at the high school. So with all that said, I absolutely recommend Nate Cutting for tenure.
With that, I'd like to call for a vote on the resolution to approve the tenure.
Make that motion.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
We say we're very fortunate to have the staff and the recruiting mechanisms we have in place.
Yes, this past year was interesting. Our new staff, sometimes we always say better off being lucky than good. We'll take it, whatever it is. We have some very high quality new staff members and some very high quality veteran staff members. We're very lucky as a district.
Those are students.
Yep.
At this time, you are welcome to stay for the full meeting. But if you don't want to stay for the full meeting, you are all welcome to depart.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Congratulations and thank you.
Merry Christmas. Nice to have a couple of little ones for this.
Congratulations.
Okay, at this time, we're up to the DCMO BOCES capital project presentation.
Perry's camera works now. Caught me off guard. Looked at that black screen and there was Perry.
Hi, folks, and thank you for welcoming us into your board meeting. We are looking at a building project potentially. Bob has the slide set ready, and I think he's got it all queued up. Looks to, I mean, what I'm seeing is the share, so I'm hoping that it's working on your end. I'm assuming it is. And the project is proposed in 2 phases, specifically reasons for that. The first reason is student need. As many of you know, we have some very high need students in our region. And as we move into post-COVID, we're seeing more of that pronounced in younger grades as well. Currently, the BOCES does not have a facility that is allowing us to provide the Lighthouse and the Crossroads programs, which Bob will talk about and I can answer questions on a little bit later, in Delaware County or at the Harold campus specifically. We do have that programming at the Pole campus. It is full currently. And it's limited in slots. And so the project would basically provide us with two buildings, new buildings at each of the campuses that would be able to house approximately 60 students. Looking at our needs right now currently, and working with the CSE chairs, it appears that if we had the buildings built today, we could almost fill them. So the need is there. The question is, can we pay for them as we move forwards? Because of the phasing and because of the $500,000 projects that we normally do with the BOCES, if we take those $500,000 projects and then apply them towards the loan for phase one, and Bob will explain this as he does his presentation, we would be able to mitigate some of the costs and make it more affordable for our districts to be able to provide those programs necessary for those high need students. This is significant in the fact that we could probably bring back to the region students that are placed out of the region and out of the region placements. These traditionally are students that are costing the district someplace between $100,000 and $150,000. That is our hope, and that is the desire. And the desire is to provide wraparound services for students at a much younger age so that those disabilities that they may have that create unsafe environments for our students in the buildings and in your buildings could be mitigated as they grow, and they could return to their general ed or their BOCES or their special ed programming. So with that said, I'm going to let Bob go ahead and do the presentation, and we'll answer questions at any point in time or at the end. So again, thank you very much, and thank you for giving me the grace of being able to be home tonight. I do have a sore back, and I just drove from Albany back home. So, and I think Mike understands that issue. So thank you for the grace.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to come into your meeting this evening. My name is Bob Avery. I'm the Director of Services for the CMO. One of my responsibilities is to oversee our buildings and grounds. So I've been very much involved in this project and look forward to explaining what it is that we're proposing. The agenda for this presentation is essentially identify what the needs are, as Perry elaborate on what Perry has described already. Second, to identify what we are proposing as a solution, and then third, to talk about the financing both for region wide as well as the specifics for the Walton School District. A capital project is really, as Perry identified, is to address programmatic needs for students, especially in terms of mental health needs who are struggling in traditional classrooms. And secondly, to address physical plant needs that we have at the BOCES. Our buildings are 50 years old. The additions are obviously less than that, but the core buildings are both 50 years old, and we're starting to see some issues, as you can expect with the buildings of that age. We are hoping to have a referendum vote in March, this coming March. We are reaching out and sharing this information with all 16 component districts, and hoping that they will give us the go-ahead to ask the voters for approval. And then secondly, to also allow us to house a polling site on one of your campuses. Specifically, as we get into the needs, we're looking at increasing, we have a need to increase programs for students. In particular, our Lighthouse program, which is a short-term 60 to 90 day generally therapy intensive program that builds some academic work into it. It's really not very heavily academic focused, but more therapy focused to get kids back into the mindset of being back in school and being able to transition back into the classroom, whether it be at the BOCES or in your home school. The Crossroads program is a longer term program for kids that are struggling. This is really an alternative ed program. It's a year, so students would be enrolled for a year, possibly multi-years. We are currently focused on high school students in that program, but we are starting to see the need creep down into younger grades, and we would like to build programs and services for those younger kids as well. As Perry described, we there are programs that students need that we just can't house. We don't have the space, nor do we have the staff right now. Their needs exceed our ability to perform. We'd like to create a space to develop these programs and bring these students back from outside of the region, and also kids with needs that we just can't meet. This slide, I'm not going to read it. You can read it yourself, but it just provides a greater description of what the programs are, the Lighthouse Crossroads, and then our Pathways program. We've identified what we've seen this year is an increase in 50 special needs students enrolled in DCMO compared to last year already, just in 1 year. And we are starting to wait list students into our programs because the needs are starting to exceed our capacity. We're also seeing an increase in the severity of needs, especially in terms of mental health needs for these students. As Perry described, we have what we're calling a TLC, or a therapeutic learning center. We have a pilot program built in at our Pole campus in Norwich, which has started, but we have no such program here. And that program has already filled up. The pilot is filled up, and we have a wait list on it. And then, of course, some districts are having to transport students out of the region. A lot of time on the bus for the kids, long days for the kids. Potentially high transportation costs for the district, or if the parents are self-transporting. And the idea here is also to create an environment where agencies that are nearby can come to us and reduce the cost, because we pay for the mileage for them to come to provide the service. So if they're going all the way to, Binghamton, for example, then that is adding to the cost of the programs that these students need. What we know from speaking with the CSE chairs and some of the principals, our administrators, the assistant superintendent, Ginger Ronaldo, and our director of special ed, Fred Reagan, have been in conversations this fall with your CSE chairs, your principals, to discuss what are the needs right now. And right now, for Crossroads, there's about 25 kids that the CSE chairs from the component districts have identified as needing services that are not receiving it. About half of them are receiving other special education services at the BOCES, and about half are in component school districts. The Lighthouse program, as we've said a couple of times now, we have a pilot program, it's already full, and we've already got children waitlisted. For the younger kids, we are seeing an increase in the demands for autism programming, especially for students in the primary grade levels. CSE chairs have identified about 16 students that would benefit from such programming, and the Pathways programming, about 15 to 16 middle school age students. So we'd like to expand that Pathways program into the middle school levels. To do that, we're proposing this project. Phase 1 would begin, if the referendum were successful, we would begin construction in the spring of 2024 and have it completed before the start of the 25-26 school year. The design, we would build 2 therapeutic learning centers, one on each campus, that would specifically house these programs. One of the things we've learned piloting the program in Norwich is that when the students have to move from one end of the building to the other, from where the program is housed to common areas that they need access to, like the gymnasium and the cafeteria, they generally don't always interact well with other students in the building, and sometimes we have problems. So creating separate buildings, a separate space will help address that issue. We also have an issue with age-appropriate recreational space for students with special needs. I'll show you a slide in a little bit that will identify, what our existing structures are. Really, basically, playgrounds designed for preschool age children, not for students who are aged 5 to 12. This is both of our campuses here at the Herald campus in Masonville. We looked to add that playground space outside the main entrance on the second floor. Using that open space right there. The TLC building would go here. This is a parking lot outside of the gymnasium and the cafeteria is across the hall, so they would have easy access through a door right there. So it would be in close proximity, but still separate. They could access those things that they need in the main building and be able to get back and forth. Same concept in Norwich. An additional playground, and then the TLC building would be located near the gymnasium and the cafeteria. This is a conceptual design from our architects on what this building could look like. It's about 5,000 square feet. It houses 5 classrooms designed for 811, which is 8 students to 1 certified teaching staff and 1 aide. That gives us maximum flexibility. We would probably not staff those classrooms that way. It would be more like 613 or 612 in those spaces, but it gives us greater flexibility. It also includes breakout rooms for therapy, an administrative office for the coordinator of the program, and in the middle here, you see this set of double egress doors. It's actually to create separation between our youngest students in the K3 and or the K2 and the 3-5 programs, and those in the middle school and high school. In terms of age appropriate play spaces at the Herald campus, this is on the side of our first floor, and you can see there just a little bit off the end there, but we have 1 single swing set with 4 swings on it, and basically a large scale little type plastic playground for kids to play on. At the Pole campus, you can see the playground area there a little bit better with the swing set in the background. That's all we have for students with special needs. I can get this to work this time. Should be a video there. This video was prepared by the students and staff at, I believe it was at the Pole campus. And it was presented to our board. The students making the case for why they need a better playground space. If we can't get to it, that's fine. Oh, okay, we'll just continue. So that's the intent for phase 1. Phase 2 really gets to address some of those infrastructure pieces that I briefly mentioned before. These have all been identified and listed in our building condition survey. It's included in our 5-year plan. They've been defined by the architects. And it really is nuts and bolts sort of things. Fire alarm systems, emergency lighting, driveways, parking lots. If you've ever driven on the driveway going into the Herald campus, you know what I mean. It's not much better in a lot of spots than going up a gravel road. Roofs, building envelopes, we are starting to experience leaks, as you would expect with the building that age. Herald campus has some aggregate wall panels that are 50 years old, and now we're starting to encounter some leaks, HVAC, etc. Even the programmatic items, the gymnasiums, that is replacing old partition doors to separate our gym into 2 spaces, and CTE shop ventilation systems. Phase 2 would begin in 26-27 if we're successful. We've estimated, the architects have estimated the cost of this at about $20 million. This does include inflationary escalators built in, so we've accounted for the delay between when the project was approved and when we would actually begin construction. Now for the dollars and cents of it. DCMO for the 2006 referendum, the 2008-2009 projects to add on to those 2 buildings. DCMO took on the debt. The debt then is paid back to it's portioned out to the component districts based on enrollment or ARWADA, and then the DCMO makes the payment to the Dorm Authority of the state of New York. So we're gonna use the same methodology here. And really, if it's structured properly, it's timed so that the payments to the dorm authority happen, and it's actually pulled from the state aid payment that goes from Albany to DCMO before it gets distributed. So it really almost has no direct cash flow impact on the component districts because it's already been withdrawn. Districts pay their share to the BOCES. Unlike programmatic and service aid, which comes in the following year. So you spend the money and then you get aid on the money. Now that we know what you spent, aid on facilities projects for BOCES comes in the current year. So it's already taken out. So you don't have that year lag that you normally do with BOCES aid. Aid is based on your district's aid ratio times the bond percentage, which is how much of that project is aidable. Not all of it is going to be aidable. Stuff on the administrative building is not aidable. Anything touching classroom spaces is aidable. And then based on your share of the region's enrollment. These numbers, we've been working very closely with the professionals at Fiscal Advisors to develop this scenario. Phase one is a $14 million borrow. First payment in 25-26. That's important for the third bullet because our existing debt from the 2008-2009 project, our last payment is August of 2027. So there would be a 3-year overlap with the phase one cost. Phase two would not begin, the debt service payments for that would not begin until the following year after the existing debt falls off. And I'll show that to you graphically here shortly. During that 3-year overlap, we estimate, Fiscal Advisors estimates that the approximate payments will be about $1.1 million. DCMO has a capital maintenance project budget of $500,000 that we use annually for things like systems upgrades. So this year, last year, our capital maintenance project was upgrading the welding shop to provide better ventilation at the Harrow campus, as well as a remodeling of the cosmetology shop to come into compliance with Department of Health requirements for manicure tables. So we ended up remodeling most of that shop. So we try to focus those things on classroom projects, things that are going to improve the learning environment. Sometimes we have to do things that are outside of that scope. This year, the project was removing an underground storage tank that was 30 years old. And if you've worked in schools and you know that at about 30 years, the insurance company does not like to insure that much longer. So we had to get those out before we lost insurance coverage for those. So those are the types of things. During those 3 years, we would take that money, not do projects, and apply it to that $1.1 million. So what this looks like regionally, this is net cost after state aid. Our current payments on the last project is just over $1 million, $1,005,000. With the addition of the phase one debt, with DCMO using that $500,000 for each of these 3 years, the cost would go up to $1.28 million. And then afterwards, the old debt is gone. Phase two kicks in green, and we end up at 1.22. So it is a slight increase over time, but we try to mitigate that as much as possible to have as level of an impact as possible on local budgets as well as on your taxpayers. What does that look like for Walton? Can I turn it on? You can move. Oh, no, bring the slide back, move the window, please. There we go, thank you. In Walton's case, Walton pays about $90,000 net after aid for our existing debt for the previous project. That's your share of those debt payments of that 1,005,000. With the phase one, as we structured it, that cost would go up just about just over 23,000 to 113,000. And then it would fall back down to 101,000. So a net change basically of about $10,700. What does that mean for your property taxpayers? Based on current assumptions and data, based on what we know of property value today, not what it's projected to be in 5 years, and based on the assumptions of the project cost, the regional cost will go up about $3.25 per $100,000 of value in the home. So if you have a home in the community worth $100,000, the net impact would be about $3.25 per year. If you have a $200,000 home, your net impact would be under $6.50. In Walton, those numbers are $1.89. So it'd be a $1.89 impact on a property taxpayer with a $100,000 value home. This is the math if you want to look. And then finally, I'm going to go through the borrowing scenarios. What did we estimate it based on? Fiscal advisor said a 5% interest is a reasonable estimate at 20 years. We are conservatively estimating that at 75, this project is going to be 75% aid eligible. Obviously, if it's a higher number, if it's a 90% aid eligible, that means more state aid is going to pay for the project, less of a local impact. We wanted to estimate conservatively because I'd rather tell you that you're going to get more state aid and your impact is going to be lower than to come back and say your aid's not the project's not as aided as high and the impact's going to be higher, right? Both phases are estimated at 75%. District share, again, is based on the formula of the debt payment times your attendance or your enrollment. In this case, we'll use an example of $1 million debt service payment. If you have 5% of the enrollment in the region, your share would be $50,000. That's the gross share. You receive BOCES aid in the current year, as we discussed. So it would take that payment, the $50,000, times how much of the project is aid eligible, we're using the 75% times the BOCES aid percentage. Here we're estimating that at 80%. So 50,000 times 75% times 80% is $30,000 in aid, which leaves a net local share of 20,000. That's all well and good in theory. What does it look like for Walton? For 25-26, the Walton share of the 623,000, again, 1.1 million minus the 500,000 is just under 50,000, with just under $25,000 in aid, leaving a $23,000 net impact, which is again the difference between the 90 and the 113 from a couple of slides ago. For 28-29 and beyond, phase one plus phase two, we estimate the total debt payments will be just over $2.7 million. Walton shares 209,000, of which 108,000 is aidable or comes back in state aid, leaving the net at 101. I hope that helps explain the reasons that we're asking for your consideration of the project. That the project itself makes sense. And again, we come back to the question, we're not looking for a formal motion or anything, but for you to discuss it, share it with Mike and share back to Perry, whether or not you feel good about where we're at and where we're going with this. And then secondly, if so, whether or not we can, you would be a host for one of the voting sites here. I do want to thank Dr. McDonald and Meg and the other superintendents and business officials. We've been talking about this with them for a few months. And in the last couple of months, it's gotten a lot more specific, and their feedback really helped drive defining the phasing a lot better. And so I think it was a very collaborative effort, a conversation to help refine this to the point where we're ready to share this information with you tonight.
So there, before you go into questions, just to clarify process, and Perry, please, if I'm incorrect on this, but I believe I'm correct because we clarified it the other day just for the board. the first step in the process is for after BOCES goes out to the districts and hits the districts, the superintendents will be voting on whether or not this project moves to the voters of the region. That's
That's
step
correct. And
one.
that's, yeah, and that's based on feedback from the presentations. Yes.
So that's one of the reasons, well, that is the reason why, BOCES took our advice as superintendents and is coming out to each district, because the superintendents don't make this decision in isolation, especially when you're making a 20-year commitment or 30-year commitment. How long's the financing?
20 is the model.
20 years. So we'll, as superintendents, of course, will be looking for board direction over time for these projects. So that's step one. So now you can go to questions. I have
So at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions that any of you have. If I can answer, hopefully Barry can, and if neither one of us can answer, we'll certainly get the answer back to Mike.
Well,
right
it would
away.
seem to me that it would be a default that DCMO, if it went out to a vote, would have a polling in our district, right? For our taxpayers. Wouldn't that automatically be a yes for us? And
It
question
would
two,
not be automatic, but it's been, we believe that it would be best to maximize the opportunities for people to vote. So yes, we would want to have a polling place here.
I'm just trying to clear off as many as we can, all right? I mean, if question number two, if it goes to a vote, I would expect that we would have that available in our district, right?
I would think so.
Yeah, so I think we can say number
want
two.
that.
would
we still
definitely-
have the last ballot box.
So
I will just break it out and dust it off.
I would say if it does come to a vote in our district, I think we would appreciate having it represented. Other question I have, and then I'll let who else jump in. You're subject to New York City DEP regulations, right?
Yes.
Okay. Have you guys gone through any of their stormwater requirements that are above and beyond the state for projects?
Yeah, we have in the past, yes.
Okay. You know those are aidable through not-for-profits as per the filtration avoidance determination by the city, right? Okay, are those calculated into those as local cost shares? Have you done any of those calculations yet?
That has not been calculated in, but as BOCES is a public K-12, I'm not sure if those not-for-profit opportunities are there. We do receive, we work with the city very closely because of our wastewater treatment facility at the Herald campus. So we've been working with them closely already.
I would recommend getting in touch with their stormwater people, Joe Damrath specifically, and then I would recommend reaching out to the Casco Watershed Corporation, Jason Merwin's the executive director, and pose that question to them, whether or not that's grantable and to be considered a local cost share against for your local tax base, quite frankly, to offset those costs. I think you may enjoy their response.
Always open to ideas that can lower the cost for the components. Thank you.
So one of the questions, and $500,000 is what you projected, is such a weird thing. Like looking at the back of my head and I'm looking at you, like, whatever, going with it. You're projecting that the capital expenses that you would ordinarily allocate to improvements and the like on your campus, the $500,000 is going to be used to defray some of the debt service that would, then the result is coming to our cost share. What if, like you said, you had to do like cosmetology, manicure table, something like that, because that was a state requirement. What are you going to do in the event that a project like that comes along and you have to allocate resources to be compliant with some state reg?
We'll continue to, obviously monitor that. Usually such regulations come with a long lead time to give us time to react to those. And if not, then we would attempt to work within the existing operational budget for O&M room.
Yeah, the other side of that too is that we've done the $500,000 projects for the past 6 years that I've been at the BOCES. They were actually jumped from 300, I think, to 6 the second year I was here, and to 500,000 the second year I was here. And at this point in time, when we looked at the project, we obviously wanted to make sure that we weren't going to get ourselves into a corner. And so at this point, as we looked at the building condition report and as we talked with the architects, We have one project that we need to do before we hit the 3-year stretch. And potentially that 3-year stretch could go to 4 or potentially 5, depending on where we're at with the other programming. But we can't promise anything past the 3 at this point, specifically for the reasons you state. But we feel very strongly that the 3 years will be covered by the 500,000.
I had a couple of questions on the question and answer sheet to add to that. The lighthouse, the crossroads and the pathways services. There was a question is what is the cost per student? It wasn't actually answered. The TLC stated that it would be currently the same as the TLC at the Allen Pole campus. Do you happen to know what that amount is?
The tuition,
Yep.
Go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, right around 50,000 at this point in time. Which is when you look at a student who's placed out of the region, those costs, like I said earlier, can be 100 to 150, plus the transportation. We're looking to provide those types of placements here in region. And we're also seeing, the districts are also seeing that BT is basically shut their doors to those types of programs as well. And that's kind of a common place for our students to go in the past. So I think as we move forwards, this becomes a critical issue for students for our region that have the needs that are that high. And if we can do this for that same cost, which we feel we can, then that's going to be a significant savings to the districts. And when you look at like Walton's example, 3 years at $20,000 extra, you'll pay, if you have one student, you would actually receive a windfall on that student at that cost. So over those 3 years at 50,000. So I think it makes financial sense in that realm. If you reason it out that way, not saying that you will, experience that or that each of the 16 districts would experience that situation. But I think over time, it's definitely good for students and it definitely will pay for itself.
How many students are currently enrolled? Excuse me, I'm losing my voice in the Pole campus
In the crossroad, or
for the lighthouse. I believe
Yeah.
it was the lighthouse program.
I believe that, Barry, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that's 8 currently.
Okay, so they're at max
Yes.
capacity. They can't take any more. So, okay.
We have 2 to 3.
We have kids on the wait list for that program. And you guys can't access it in Delaware County. It's
Because it's where it's located right now. At
pretty
the other-
much, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can if there's a slot, but for the most part, Hancock's not sending anybody. I don't think that you guys are sending anybody or Delhi. So I think Sydney accesses it. I think that's the only Delaware County
So,
school.
BOCES does not utilize school district classrooms. Right now, I see it in the question and answer. They don't utilize it. That's not a consideration in the future because with enrollments declining in districts, there is space available. That
Yep.
wouldn't be an option.
If you remember, I think it was 3 years ago, we pulled 5 programs out of districts and brought them back to the BOCES, specifically because of the fact of the transportation issues that districts were seeing, along with the issues that we were having with these types of students being in district and the administration staff in district having to deal with the issues that these students were presenting in those programs. So number one, the management was a pretty significant issue for us because it was taking some of our administrators out of the buildings. And number two, the transportation issues that the districts were seeing were significant as well. So talking to the superintendents, I don't believe there's any appetite for that, I guess is the easiest way to say that.
And that you just brought another point that I had, sorry. I don't mean to speak over the meeting. With this being built outside of the campus footprint, you're actually gonna be taking administrators out of that, or you're gonna be hiring additional administrators to run the programs for the, what is it, 550 square foot of classroom? And there's 5 classrooms.
5,500.
Yeah,
So you're gonna need an administrator in that classroom, and you're gonna be keeping those students, that's one of my concerns, is you're gonna be keeping those students so much separated from everyone else, with it being a
Right.
separate building. That would be a
So
concern
the-
for me.
Yep, so those concerns are valid. We will have to add, we currently have enough administrative staff to run the whole campus if that was up and available because of the program that we've already got there. We would have to hire staff, we'd have to hire a full complement of staff at the Herald campus as well to match that. So yes, we're going to have to hire one more administrator and some support staff to run that. There's no doubt about that. But that's still less staff than the 5 that we would need if we were to place one administrator in each of the 5 outlying locations that we had in the past. Not that all 5 would need them, but at one point or time, the administrators were moving to those, and they were leaving the buildings, either the Herald campus or the Pole campus, open without administrators, if necessary. So, and the other piece of this is the isolation is basically because of this unsafe environment that these students tend to generate when they are included in the building. So the isolation is somewhat necessary. They need to have access to the gym, access to the cafeteria, but because of the unsafe environment, learning environment that they incur, we've seen some significant issues, and the increase of those significant issues. We've got students that are creating unsafe environments, and that they prevent the other students from being able to have an education. And so when that occurs, and when those situation occurs, the only option you have is to isolate. And that's the function of these 2 buildings.
Currently, the Norwich campus is located in this part of the building on the lower level. So to get from here to the cafeteria, they are going through the special education wing and then down the hall past the library and intermixing with CTE students before they get over to that. And that's where we've seen significant behavior issues. And it's just, it becomes untenable at times to manage and to try to get them refocused into what they need to be doing in terms of if they want to graduate on time.
Their programming does not provide access to the other programming during the day in that building. The only time they have access to the other parts of that building currently is if they get by the support staff that is working in that area, and or if they're moving to cafeteria or to the gym, like Bob said. These students can provide some significant safety issues.
And I understand the Crossroads program where they're gonna be long-term, but the Lighthouse program, that's kind of temporary to get them ready to go back into a classroom or a program. So that's my confusion there, is to keep them segregated from everybody else, how you're building that skill to interact. That would be.
Yeah, that's a good question, Rhonda. The short-term therapeutic piece of the Lighthouse program is for students who are in extreme crisis and are not learning anyways. There's a lot of wraparound services that go to all 3 of these programs. But for the Lighthouse, for example, if a student tragically loses both parents and just can't cope, okay, they need to be in school, but they're probably not going to be able to focus on their educational process. And so, not that that's completely left out of the picture, but there's a lot of therapy, there's a lot of development, there's a lot of support that's provided in a small learning environment setting. And to a degree, it's one-on-one in a lot of cases. And then also there's transitioning support to bring the students back into their programming. If they can't make it back into their general education programming, then they would go to the Crossroads program for more long-term type of care and therapy, and then that would be more involved with the educational process as they move forwards. But the Lighthouse program is specifically for kids who just basically have shut down in crisis. And it doesn't matter whether they have IEPs or not. These could be students that they could be a valedictorian that, you know, just is not prepared for the learning environment.
Question for you, Andy. 2829, you have the Walton that costs at 101,413. And if I understand that correctly, that is based on today's student enrollment
Correct.
in BOCES.
So that number will change. obviously.
Okay. But with these numbers, these are only construction cost numbers, right? Nothing for the administration that's gonna have to be, or the additional staff hiring is embedded into this number. This is only construction numbers.
Correct.
Okay.
With the $50,000 tuition, roughly $50,000 tuition cost, that is where the operational costs are covered. Right, so the program has a coordinator as well as the therapists and the instructors that are working in that program that are all included into that tuition amount. So that is only paid by the component districts that need the service or are using the service. And would not is outside of the capital project piece.
Bob, if you want to take a second, just explain our WADA a little bit more. So the portion of the budget of what goes into it regarding enrollment is not, it's not BOCES enrollment. It's the weighted average daily attendance of our district. And then calculated out with the rest of the districts. You want to explain that just a little bit from?
That is correct. And I'll be honest, our WADA itself is a concept that I have not completely gotten my head around. For the record, I'm a school business official for about 20 years, but 18 of those years were in Wisconsin.
I can explain it. So I'll explain it.
Yeah.
So by state, they calculate an average weighted daily attendance. It actually works 2 years behind, approximately 2 years.
We're
behind
approximately 2 years behind. Yes, Mike.
with the active enrollment. So when they take all the enrollments of all the districts, and then it ends up being a percentage of that piece. So each of us have a weighted average enrollment, ends up being a percentage number, and it comes out to be, so you have a piece of the pie. It gets calculated out and weighted out by a percentage, and that's the amount that we have of the cost. So if in 3 years, Kevin, say we lost another 100 kids, our piece of the pie, so to speak, depending on what happens in the rest of the region, could remain the same, could be less, could be more, could be adjusted, depending on how that factors in. Did I hit that okay, Perry?
Yeah, and the other thing, Kevin, is it changes from year to year to year, like Mike said. So if you have 20 students who move from Walton to Delhi, that'll change your numbers and it'll change Delhi's numbers. But if they all stay in the region, it doesn't change the regional numbers. It's a way in which it calculates across the state, and every BOCES uses this, depending on the pricing mechanism for the service and how it's shared out, is how you determine whether it's an WADA. In this case here, all of the type of capital and rent type things are always calculated on our WADA because it's a fair weighted average across the region. And so, for example, if you guys use how you would, I guess, game the system, if you will. If you guys had 5 students that utilized this program and Norwich had 1, okay? Norwich is a much bigger populated area, bigger population in their school. Their WADA is much greater than yours. They're paying more than you are for the building project, okay? But if you have 5 students in the program, you're getting those students per student at a lot less, and a lot cheaper per building than the 1 student in Norwich.
Depending on the program and the costing methodology of the program.
Yeah, saying that everything is the same, but the WADA and the students are different. Yeah.
DTE is based on our WADA. The special
Yep.
education programs that we're talking about are tuition based.
Tuition
They're
based,
not based on our water. Everybody pays the same amount to access the program.
right? Yeah, and I wasn't talking about the tuition. I was just talking about if you look at your building costs, not the tuition costs, but the building costs, you guys have 5 students. You're getting more return on your investment in that building than Norwich would be. Because Norwich is gonna be playing a much bigger piece of the pie than you guys will.
Because your
I don't
current,
remember what Norwich's Arwada figured out in this one. Bob, I don't know if you've done that or not, but
I have it on my laptop, I can pull it up if it's needed, but essentially. Your share of the enrollment for the 16 component districts is 7.69% at the current moment, right? So
Right.
you laid out a great example of kids shifting within the region between 2 component districts. The whole region declines and you lose 20, but the whole region loses 100. The impact may be different. You may end up at closer to 8% because you didn't lose as many kids as everybody else. So that will fluctuate every year and year to year. As will your aid ratio number will fluctuate a little bit year to year. So, these numbers are not static. We can only take the data that we have and project costs forward based on the best information we have. And rather than going off hog wild and trying to figure out, okay, you've been losing, at a greater enrollment at a greater rate, so let's project that forward. It's just more consistent and quite frankly, easier to explain. By using the current data and casting it forward.
Okay, I have 2 more questions. One, it was mentioned that some enrollment has increased as a result of, pandemic, things like that. Was there a huge demand for this prior to like pandemic response, like COVID, things like that? Or has this been a relatively recent surge in demand and we're trying to project a 20-year solution for what could be a relatively short-term problem?
no, we created therapeutic learning centers. We were talking about them pre-COVID. We created it just post-COVID. Actually, it was last year. But the conversation has been something that has been over time pre-COVID. COVID has probably exacerbated this and has exacerbated it across the state. When I go to DS meetings, this is definitely a topic of conversation, but as we move forwards, I don't think that you're going to see the need go away. The projections that we're getting that's why we're looking at the elementary programs, because the behaviors that are being displayed that are pronounced, those types of unsafe behaviors are significant in pre-K kindergarten now, which they haven't been in the past.
Okay, and the other question is, hypothetically, if this project weren't to move forward, we have students who have needs for services, things like that, that are being met presumably somehow right now, maybe at an incremental increase in cost, some inefficiencies with regard to transportation and the like. What happens if this doesn't move forward?
You're going to see more homebound instruction type of programming, which if you talk to your CSE, I'm sure that they don't necessarily agree with that process of education and that it's the best for kids. I would assume that some of the providers that are providing these types of services will have to add on. That's not going to change your cost. Your costs are going to probably be higher over time with the addition that some of the privates would put on to accommodate these needs for these students. That would be probably financially detrimental to the districts. And it would really depend on what the federal government does with some of the money that they may put into this if they see it as a national issue as well. But there's nothing on the horizon that indicates any of that would come to fruition. So what I just said is all hypothetical.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, we greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you very much for your hospitality and happy holidays.
Same to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Feel better, Perry.
Yeah, feel better, Curtis.
Thanks, guys. Take care. It's good seeing everybody. Happy holidays. Enjoy
Thank
your
you.
families and get some rest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To whom do we owe this?
Take care, Bob. That was my fault, just good friends with a lot of farmers want to sweeten you up well.
Sorry, I have. to
He's
go.
gonna need two.
Okay.
Sweeten him up.
I was reading, I've been trying to avoid it for a month and get out.
Have a good night, Al.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to all of you. We'll see you again till after that.
You too.
And if you get to duck out of the weather Friday.
Yeah, really.
I think the duck will be in the water.
Yeah, definitely a few ducks flying around.
Take
I
care.
think so. Okay, so Dr. McDonald and. Right? CRSSA.
Go ahead.
Who wants it?
I'll give it to Meg.
We wanted to take an opportunity to just update the board on our federal stimulus money that has been, some of it has been spent, some of it we're still in the process of spending. Sent this out in advance. I hope you got a chance to look at it. If you have any questions, feel free to type up. So the federal funding we received as a result of the COVID pandemic has came in 6 different funding buckets, and they're summarized here, and they total just over $5.8 million. The first bucket was the CARES Act, or called ESSER 1. This was $461,000. It was spent entirely in the 2021 school year. This was the year when we didn't know what our state aid levels would be. And these funds were used in the general fund primarily for salaries all for salaries and benefits in anticipation of possible state aid reductions. And it identifies there the positions that were funded that year using those funds. The second pot was also part of the CARES Act. It was referred to as GEAR, and I can't tell you off the top of my head what GEAR stood for. This was $78,000, again, all spent on salaries in that year. The third pot is that I want to talk about is CRRSA, or ESSER 2. This totaled just over 1.6 million, and you see I put it in different years here. We spent $352,000 in 2021, mostly on salaries. Spent $462,000 in 21-22. So far, year to date, we spent $252,000. We anticipate spending another $500,000 this year. And then the only piece that we're carrying over next year is $50,000 for IT related equipment that we identified in our plan. So I broke this into several categories. We had some teaching salaries, aid salaries, and support for that group of, technology and things like that for that group. Then we had other support services that we paid for, whether it be health office salaries, technology salaries, things like that. And then we've done a lot with facilities. This is the pot of funding where we are put in the study for the generator. We're doing a lot of HVAC work as part of this, replacing all the old unit vents in this building. And we anticipate that being done this spring and summer. So most of that will be spent by the end of this year. The largest pot is under the American Rescue Plan. This totals $3.6 million. Again, separating it between what was spent in 21-22, what's been spent this year, what's in progress this year, and what's planned for next year. This is another pot where we anticipate spending most of it this year. The items that we anticipate carrying forward for next year is another year of funding for our social workers and health aid in next year. The generator work is coming out of here. There's salaries, all of the after school programming, tutoring, summer work, things like that we've been doing has come out of here. The math curriculum has come out of here. We anticipate the elementary science curriculum update coming out of here. There's some various salaries that are coming out of here. The tennis and track court resurfacing came out of here. We've done things with the
ag classroom and the welders and updating their equipment and what they have. We've done things with the music department and requests that they had. We've done things with the athletic department. Requests that they had. We've met some needs that the health office has requested. The items, we are required to use 20% of this grant to address learning loss. So the items highlighted in orange are things that I'm tagging as identifying as helping to address learning loss. Scroll down to the next page again, just those same years. So you'll see down at the bottom right there, the 20% for us was 727,000. And if you add up all the orange items, we're at 980. So if at some point someone came in and said, well, that wasn't really learning loss, I feel like we have enough cushion there that even if they took something out and said that doesn't count, we have enough other things to count towards learning loss. We currently have, I don't know if I can point here or not, but there's currently 232,000 that is not at this moment in time specifically earmarked for something. I do have a list running in my office of other needs that people would like that to be addressed that weren't part of the initial plan, but that have come up. And so as we're closing in on the end of this, we're addressing some of those as well. So I'm confident that we'll have plenty of ways to use that. One of the things that I think is great when I look at this list is we've touched every building, with the exception of the bus garage. But we've touched multiple departments. We've touched, it's not like it was all focused in one area. I think that there's just a lot of different places that we've been able to provide benefits to.
That's a lot of direction to learning loss.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And this is also the generator, emergency generator
Yeah,
project.
yeah, that's on this one
that's
under
on the bottom,
facilities, the generator and front windows. You see that. Then we had just the final two pots of money. We had two smaller pots of money that were given through IDEA, which is to address needs of students with disabilities. And there's pieces of it that we are required to provide through flow-through funds, and they go to entities that serve our students like Springbrook or Carousel if they have a student population that they serve where we're required to give them a certain amount per student. So that comes off the top, but we targeted this just over $50,000 on addressing furniture needs for the Townsend Elementary School special education classrooms. So the special education staff got together and identified seating and tables and different things that they needed. Some of this was spent last year, and some of this we've been back ordered and we've been waiting on for quite a while. But I'm hoping that these two will be finished up in the next couple of months. So that's also this last one, the American Rescue Plan, which was just $5,000. The state, in order to meet the requirements of the federal government related to all of this funding, is required to do certain reviews to make sure that we've followed all the processes and the financial requirements. They're doing 3 levels of reviews. The easiest level is a desk review where you just send some information and they look at it. The middle level is a targeted review, which is where we are. And I can't think of the third level of the most microscopic review, but we're in the middle targeted level. So they broke school districts up into groups, and they're currently doing the targeted review for group 1. We are in group 2. So I'm anticipating that will open up fairly soon. And we're going to be required to upload a lot of documents about how we spent the money and how we made our decisions and how we got input. And this is an example of one of those ways that we share what we're doing with the money and have an opportunity to provide input back.
I think this is very thorough, very transparent. Just wish the federal government was as transparent.
I think this is a great benefit because we talk about with the facilities doing so many hard target structures, roofs, parking lots, things like that. There's a lot built into this that has direct representation of students' needs and what your administrators have requested through time. So it's a nice balance. It strikes a nice balance. For sure.
There's been a ton that's happened through this, whether it be. These are categories that might have 10 or 15 things in that one. I tried to consolidate it into some reasonable categories, and there's still a lot of categories here, but we've done and continue to do quite a bit. access to these funds has, allowed us to meet some needs without necessarily having to take the funds out of the general fund. And, you know, that's been very helpful over the last couple of years. So
Do you know which schools are in the first group that are in the targeted?
I know that there are several in our district that are, I believe Sydney is one of them. That's the only one that I know of off the top of my head that is, but there are a few. And it's very, I'll be honest, it's very difficult because they awarded the money, gave very little or very
Guidance.
vague direction.
Yep.
But now there's 100 boxes you have to check to say that you did it. And so it's a challenging process. We'll do the best we can. I think we were very, you know, we kept good records. I think, we've got a lot of information we can provide, whether I can't guarantee that.
I
we're
said,
gonna-
I mean, just this alone is very transparent, you know, so.
I can't guarantee that we're gonna be able to check every box that they look for, but I think that, I think we've had good processes on how we managed and spent the funds.
And every decision was made with a link in a review back to what the federal government was describing in category. So it's just a matter of meeting the state standard of evidentiary standard as they decide to request. So.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Okay, we're up to discussion items. Finance Committee met last night.
Well, kind of.
I heard, Dick has a full report.
From the Raider Nation.
Well, I'm new to this, so a lot of it was a lot of questions asking. Mike and Meg were very helpful with that. I don't know if there was really a whole lot that we got done other than figuring out what the plan is gonna be, which was awesome because again, they did a good job helping me. I mean, that's pretty much what I needed. But it seems like the way they got things set up, it should go fairly smoothly. But she did a great job with that. And as did Mike, but I think once we have another meeting, more of it will come into view, and a lot of things we talked about may not be what everybody wants to hear, but you know, I think it'll work out.
It's the reality of it.
I don't know if there's anything specific to do.
You know, it was really, we're at the very beginning of the budget process, so it was a pretty high level overview. We looked a little bit at the budget and tax levy history in recent years. We're looking at probably having a tax levy increase of somewhere around 2%, which I can't remember off the top of my head, that's about $134,000. Just talked about a few things that we'll be addressing in this year's budget as far as, you know, continuing to look at health insurance. We have some increased special education needs that are going to have to be addressed in next year's budget, things like that. We also looked at fund balance just to review where we are and what our fund balance looks like, as well as capital reserve balances. So certainly as the state comes out with their budget and aid projections, and as we get requests from teaching staff throughout next month for next year's budget and things like that, it'll be refined further.
Okay.
Thank you.
Finance Committee. Finance Committee will meet on Wednesday, January 11th at 5 p.m. Facilities. Oh, excuse me, facilities. There you go. Facilities Committee will meet on Wednesday, January 11th at 5 p.m. Still good with Rhonda, Kevin, is still good?
Yep.
Okay. DCMO BOCES capital project general discussion. We just had the presentation on that. Covered that one well enough. At our meeting, our last meeting, we discussed canceling the January 3rd Board of Education meeting. And tonight we'll have a resolution to make it official if everyone's in agreement. So then our next meeting after that will be January 17th. We also talked about selecting a date for our reorganizational meeting in July. The first Tuesday in July is the 4th, which is a holiday. So state mandated date automatically falls to Wednesday, July 5th, or we can use a resolution on tonight's agenda to select another date within the first 15 days. I believe we're targeting the 11th, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
That was Tuesday, the 11th.
one of the discussions.
Right.
One of them. The IRT will be in operation here, but we don't believe there's going to be a conflict with our board. I believe we can have a meeting in here. to handle reorganization, if we do choose to have that on the July 11th.
If there was a conflict, we'd move to the conference room at Townsend. But we think with them finishing up at 5:30 with their services, that they could easily clear out and give us the space for a meeting.
In that case, do we push our meeting till like 6 or something like that? Or well, it will be at 6
Yeah.
one. Do you move it back even later? Or do you leave it right there?
I would leave it right there. I mean, this will be the command center, so it'll be a matter of just that crew picking and going. If we have it on the 11th versus the 5th, whatever date is decided. If it's when they're here, we'll make sure they're well versed in it, they understand it, so they don't set up a permanent,
Mhm.
they're temporary, they can move stuff out of the way temporarily if needed. But if the 4 days was any indication, they're pretty mobile.
Yeah.
They're pretty
And
mobile.
I think if we do set the date of the 11th right now, when they come back in for their January assessment, we can just tell them.
They'll know
Exactly.
that, right?
On
And that's what
Tuesday,
I'm
the 11th,
thinking.
we'll
It-
have-
I mean, July's quite a ways out. We don't know what family gatherings are gonna look like with the holiday being on the 4th. I think it's just better off to schedule it now, and then that way we don't have to worry about that week at all. Trying to come up with a forum.
I agree 100%.
So you need a motion for that?
I believe we have a resolution later on in the
Yep.
meeting,
Okay.
authorization, let me just check real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See approved Board of Education meeting date, and that's pre-populated for. We can pick that, but, if everybody favor keeping on Tuesday, they would be the 11th. So we can pass that under, new business. Let's see. And I believe that's all we have for, discussion items. Correspondence. A cooperative purchasing service report, of savings for Walton is in the packet. Is there a chance to go through that?
Mhm.
Just
That's
a-
nice that they show that.
Yeah, they do.
Right
And
there.
I wish that more services were able to do a little bit more of a breakdown to be able to show the benefit. As we know, cooperative services it's one of two things. It's either an efficiency standard where you get cost savings such as this, or it's the ability to operate programs of high level need, much like our conversation earlier today, in an efficient and affordable manner. So to have this type of report is nice. So we're gonna try to keep this information flowing so that, as much as we sometimes can be critical, we want to make sure that we show the positive when it
Yeah.
comes to the cooperative services, because it's vital.
We're saving tens of thousands of dollars by purchasing together. That's important.
Over
Absolutely.
state contracts. too.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're.
Yeah.
Right? Any discussion on that further? Okay, any additions to the agenda? Not at this time.
We do.
Just the award of the transportation bid. We added that. Everybody get a copy of that. Should be.
Mhm.
And that will be added under new business. Under. I'm just trying to find that. phone real quick.
10I.
Yeah. Well, I don't see a 10I.
It's underneath additions in there. Underneath number 8.
Adam.
It's because we normally don't have that many.
Okay. I'll just don't let me forget when we get to 10I. Okay. Up to consent agenda. So on the consent agenda, we have our financial reports, transfer of funds, declaring surplus. Again, we're gonna see a lot of tables coming forward with the clean out of the basement and area. Unpaid leave of absences, emergency appointments, and personnel appointments.
Make a motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is carried. And new business, accept donations. A is. A wheelchair from Kathy Stalzer to the elementary school health office. Thank you, Kathy Stalzer. We have a motion to accept that donation.
I'll make the motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. And then the B is revised 2022-2023 Board of Education meeting schedule. And this reflects the cancellation of the January 3rd meeting.
Make that motion. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. And under C, if someone would like to make a motion, if we're all good with that, we can have that on the 11th. If everyone's good with that date, Tuesday, the 11th.
Make the motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's carried for Tuesday, the 11th. Authorization of the engineering design and construction phase services proposal for the generator gas line upgrade.
I'll make a motion.
Any further discussion? If not, signify by saying aye.
Okay.
Opposed? That's carried. Authorization of transportation student corrected. And we had to correct the start date on that. Was the only correction in that.
Make a motion to accept that. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Approve the capital project 2020 phase 2 change order for loading dock modifications.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Personnel appointments, Wendy Miller of administrative aid in the competitive class.
I'll make that motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is carried. And personal appointments revised. This will supersede the appointment made by the board on the 6th. It is Kathy Neese, part-time cashier in the non-competitive class.
I'll make second.
Motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. And I would be the award of the transportation bid. Everyone had a chance to, everyone discuss that, you had a chance to review
Make that motion.
it.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. And we're up to policy review. Mr. Wood, please.
Thank you. All right, so up for annual review, just when you have an opportunity, policies 4321.13 preschool special education, 4321.14 special education personnel, 5405 student wellness, and 6240 investments.
Thank you, Paul.
Mhm.
And continue on with the second reading.
Okay, second reading. For policy adoption, 2325 video conferencing of board meetings.
I'll make a motion that we accept that as our second reading.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. And finally, up to administrative remarks.
Adam?
Did you bring any sun back? First of all,
Apparently not.
no, we have to wait till Friday, right? We-
Oh, it's freezing in here.
Sounds like the window. Let's see. Things are going smoothly in the, well, at least from my perspective, in the elementary school since I've been down there. You know, there's a fantastic teaching staff and support staff and, you know, Patty and Jamie keep things going in the right direction there in the office for me, so. So it's different, but it's enjoyable for the most part. All of our teams officially were scholar athlete teams. Yeah, field hockey had the highest overall average. They had 14 girls combining, I think, for a 94.14 or something around that. It's based on 75% of the roster has to have a 90 or above average. So there might be kids contributing to that don't have that 90 or above. But if as if 75% of the team has it, then it counts.
I had wondered how they did that, so, okay. Nice.
And it's just, all 5 of our varsity sportsmen, it's the first time in quite a while that we started off, that way. My father and I went up to the, state championship football games in the thing I actually texted to Dr. McDonald and meant to put it in a little picture in there, but there's a list in the program of all the scholar athletes, were we excellence or distinguished?
Distinction, right? Distinction.
So, because last year we had 10 of our 14 teams, or it might have been 11 of our 14
11.
teams, making where we were listed, and that was kind of cool to see. This year, maybe we'll be one of the teams. I think there was 3 Section 4 schools. That's good. So it's, you know, it's nice that we have true student athletes and they're not just worrying about the athletic parts.
Excellent.
And just a couple highlights off of your report.
Yeah, I forgot what I wrote. It was a while ago.
Well, for me, I'm really happy to see the Orange Card breakfast
I see
coming
that.
back. It used to be the Uber Cafe
Right.
for years. So a nice incentive to the students and the academic Sundays, you know,
Oh, yeah.
the honor roll
Yeah.
principal list Sundays, you know, there's some kids that will work
Actually,
extra hard to get those opportunities.
Hopefully I mentioned it in there, but I don't remember if I did. The PTSA sponsored that for us, and that was awesome that they were able to do that.
Just 2 fantastic, original concepts coming back. I love it. Excellent. And Mr. Loomis, we didn't get a
Yeah, no report for me. I apologize for that. The time I was out, it's not something that I can actually get out. So I apologize for that. I caught whatever was in my house that came from one of the schools, so.
He held on strong. He did. He almost made it.
It's hitting everybody, so, right? But anyways, I'll give you a snapshot of what's going on in the high school in this last week, as students are kind of enjoying the last few days together before Christmas break. We have our spirit week going on. Yesterday was Banner Day. There was a whiteout. We have the hallways decorated. Our teachers are participating in a hallway decorating contest. So morale is high in the high school, although people are really looking forward to the break. It's nice to see people kind of doing those things together, because the last couple of years we've kind of seen that. Another thing, and that we had actually happened yesterday, we had Jesse Funk come to Townsend School, middle school and high school to do a presentation as part of our SEL initiative. Fantastic message. She's a great singer. We had staff and students raving about her presentation to our kids. And so that was a nice thing to add to our student body before they go into break.
Nice.
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to
I came out
mention,
of those funds and I was talking about it.
I wanted to mention a couple of things that I participated in recently, so I wanted to say thank you. The FFA and the PTSA teamed up to do a wreath making last week. And I didn't realize how wreaths were made. The students were very helpful. It was next year, I hope we get to do the same thing and that more people get to participate. So that was a really nice opportunity. And then over the weekend, as everybody knows, I'm a wrestling mom. We had a very successful community-owned wrestling tournament. It was great to be back in person and to have so many participants here. I just wanted to say, I think it was you, Mr. Hoover, that came up with the design of the brackets.
Yeah.
They are gorgeous. They are very nice. I meant to bring it in because my son actually was the champion at 152 pounds. But it basically, it honored our local heroes. Keneen Doan, who the tournament is named after. Very, very beautiful. So thank you very much for that little extra, rather than just having a piece of plain cardboard. I thought that was a very nice touch.
Cost effective too.
And I just wanted to acknowledge it, if anybody has ever attended a wrestling tournament, it is a great deal of work. It's an all-day experience. And I just wanted to acknowledge those people that put some extra effort into it. It is an opportunity for the freshman class to earn funds. And our freshman advisor this year did an excellent job there. Maria Catalano, hopefully I didn't mess up her name too badly. She did a great job. Very appreciative of all the work that she did along with the parents that participated in that. And then also Marcia Albrecht. She runs our head table. And so I just wanted to take that opportunity to acknowledge everybody that puts the time into that. And say again, you know, we canceled the one 2 years ago, and then last year we were not allowed to have it open to the public. And so it was great to have everyone back. 14 or 16 teams. And I think it was 17.
17.
Yeah, it was. And our team ended up second.
Second, right?
Nice.
How many individuals do we have wrestling in the finals?
In the finals, it was 5.
That's great.
So that was good.
Great.
Yep, we had,
And a very competitive.
it was a very competitive, yes, it
There
was a
were, I
great
think I was
tournament.
told there were 5 state police winners that were in our tournament this
Yeah,
year.
yeah, yeah. Oh, and also Mr. Robinson for live streaming report. Thank you. It was great. So
It's come a long ways. I used to run the Booster Club program at the time when we used to do the food for the entire Caneen Dome wrestling tournament and get all the parents to work a station, whether it be at a table or doing. And so like you said, the parents that got involved, you know, thank you to them because it is a lot of work.
that's very appreciative.
Okay, if no one has anything further, I would like to entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss matter relating to employment of a particular employee and a contractual matter. And I do not believe we're going to be taking action after the executive session. So we'd like to also add on the adjournment of the meeting to that resolution.
I'd make the motion to go into exec and not making any decisions or motions, then also adjourn the meeting there.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried.